Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brandon Shank, and welcome to the Brandon Shank Podcast. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. I'm here live. Corey, what's up, dog?
What's up, man?
Well, I want to start off by saying it's official, baby. The Commanders are back. We are back. So,
good.
I have been to many Commanders games over the last 10 years, but I was in fourth grade. I think it was fourth or fifth grade. I went to RFK Stadium when the Washington Redskins played the Buffalo Bills in a regular season game. We won that game, and we ended up beating the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl that year. I'll never forget my first NFL experience, RFK. Anybody who knew that stadium knew it rocked. Well, I'm telling you what. I went to Northwest Stadium on Sunday, formerly FedEx, used my season tickets for the first time in 2 years. I haven't been there since new owners. It was electric. We were playing the Panthers. We were blowing them out. And our seats, I mean, we're in the crazy seats, right? So it's loud. I mean, the stadium, they had redone the Jumbotrons. They'd redone all the speakers. I mean, the subs will kick you out of your seat. Like, it was just electric, man. I could not believe what I was seeing. We did the wave during one of the commercial breaks. It went on around the stadium like 3 times. Like, everybody in the stadium was involved. It was just this atmosphere like we have been waiting. Washington Commanders fans have been drooling for 25 years for even a small, reminiscent, tiny smell of an herb blowing in the gentle breeze from the garden that we could have a potential to be back. And I'm telling you this, Jaden Daniels, he's phenomenal. He got hurt right when we got there. We got there in the middle of the first quarter because traffic was awful. We missed him. Right when we got there, Marcus Mariota came in, but it didn't matter. We are a great team. Jaden Daniels, phenomenal, but I'm telling you, this organization is back. So I just want to let everybody out there know. We're back. We're back, baby. And didn't think I'd say that in my lifetime. Didn't think I'd say that in my lifetime. I really didn't. I think without the federal indictments and potential jail time, Daniel Snyder would still own the team. I think he sold it because he had to. No, it was just one of those things. With or without, I think it's the reality of it. And, it's just nice to have an organization. I mean, it's the little things. So when you'd go there to FedEx years ago, you'd get hot dogs. They were wrapped in like the aluminum foil. All of the cups were like just nothing was special. Everything just looked like it was as generalized as you could be. Well, I went this time, like I said, it's the first time with the new ownership group. I mean, like, is down to the details. Everything was branded. All of the wrappers for the hot dogs had like Commanders logos. The pizza boxes were completely decked out with all kinds of like established 1932, like the big W on the front. Like, everything was extremely detailed. You could tell like somebody has put their fingerprint on the organization. It was clean. There was a ton of staff everywhere. It was just a great game day experience. I was just really, really surprised at how much of a jump forward the experience took. Like I said, they redid all the sound system. I mean, it was just a really, really cool to see us in a different place. And I know we're getting a new stadium hopefully in the next couple of years, but it was just cool. So excited, man. Corey, you're a big guy. Have you ever thought, man, maybe I could have made it in the pros? Has it ever crossed your mind?
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever really necessarily thought that way. I do know that my high school football coach never left me alone my entire span of 4 years of going to high school, but my high school football team was terrible. So never played.
Well, what if somebody right now called you and said you have a chance to be a Division I athlete and to make potentially $1 million with an NIL deal?
I don't think my knee would make it. I know my
but you
body
only have
currently.
To make the team. You could make the team, be a big disappointment, and be done in 1 year and make $1 million.
For sure. I'm going for it. Yeah.
All right. Not? Well, you might have a chance. All right. Well, maybe we have to buy you a plane ticket because Arizona last week lost to Cincinnati. Their kicker missed 2 field goals, which put them out of contention. They would have been within a touchdown. At the end of the game, the coach went on a rant, and he said he is opening up a full tryout to anybody who wants to kick for their team as a Division I school. And so there's a young man named Nolan Krinsky who for the last 3 years has tried his hardest to be a walk-on at Arizona and has not had the opportunity to be a part of that football team. Nolan immediately heard this and has started to write and post videos all over social media, and they've taken off. And today at 11 o'clock, I believe it's their time, Nolan is getting a shot to become the kicker for Arizona at a tryout. You could be that guy. We got to get you on a plane. You may be the biggest kicker in the history of football. But if they don't like you kicking, they may say, "Hey, man, would you mind standing in the middle of the field with the helmet on to be a D lineman and hope just do everything you can?"
Maybe.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
So
6'7", 300 goes a long way, I think. Yeah.
Hey, well, I mean, don't you think you're interested at this point? I mean, NIL could come knocking, man.
Sure.
It's just a
I think
a chance.
with my luck getting on a plane right now, though, I'm going to end up in Mobile, Alabama. So
if you're lucky. If you're lucky. There was also it's funny this week, the Saints there was a tryout hoax online where they said the Saints are holding a full tryout for anybody who is wanting to play football because they needed some help. But you know what's funny about that is the movie Invincible with Mark Wahlberg. It's a great movie where he tried out for the Eagles. It's a real story. He played the character, and this guy made the Eagles, and he ended up. What is his name? I got to look it up now. But have you seen that movie?
I don't think I've seen it. No, I know the movie you're talking
about. You need to see it.
All right.
I think you would enjoy it, man. It's a story of Vince Papale. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I know you're not one. Are you one for like sports movies?
If it's a good movie, I'll watch a good movie. It doesn't matter really what.
Yeah. I would say you would enjoy this. It's a great movie. It's a true story. I love movies based on true stories.
Yeah.
True story about a guy who tried out for the Philadelphia Eagles and made it. A local dude who worked at a bar.
I like
great story. Yeah, it's on Prime. I love it, and it just came on Prime for free. So, it's just every year around August I watch that movie. That and We Are Marshall, a couple of football classics. Remember the Titans. Just some classics. You know what I'm saying?
I like it.
Whenever you I want to ask, I'm curious for everybody out there listening, when you go to the airport, I feel like one of the hardest things to do is to hug your family goodbye when you know you're leaving for an extended period of time. I remember a couple years ago, I was going to Israel. My wife was pregnant with our fourth child, and she was about 2 weeks due. And I told her, I'm not going on this trip. You're 2 weeks. She goes, no, go on the trip no matter what. I remember getting my bags out of the car, kissing my boys, and kissing my wife, who was pregnant with my fourth child, walk into the airport, knowing I'm going to be gone for 10 days in another country, in Israel. I've got a 14-hour flight ahead of me. And it felt very dark and gloomy and hard, right?
Yeah.
Now, my wife, it was a quick kiss, hug. She went on her way, I went on my way. Because if we extended it, we'd still be there hugging. Do you ever have moments like that at the airport? Where you just where you've been on a big trip? Have you had to say goodbye where you're just like, man, this is tough? Or you're leaving one to come back home and you're leaving somebody? I mean, have you had that where you're like, man, these goodbyes, for whatever reason, they're mysteriously hard.
Yeah.
Harder than if you said goodbye at your house and they're driving in a car. Something about an airport.
Yeah. A lot of this gets tied, honestly, back to kind of my counseling and like actually opening myself up to feel emotions. But
okay,
yeah, like honestly,
like that. Let's go there.
The trip that you and I took, where we went to, we went to Mobile, Alabama, but then we went
we went to Montgomery, and we accidentally went to Mobile, and our bags weren't there, so we flew to Mobile for no reason because we thought we were chasing our bags. Yeah.
But it's stuff like that or anything like, I'm saying goodbye. I'm getting on a plane. Anytime you get on a plane, even though we know statistically it's safer than you probably more likely get into a car crash, it's just those thoughts are there now, those kind of fears and like little like, oh man, what if I don't come back or what, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I definitely feel that.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. That's a great assessment. Well, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. It's Dunedin or Dunedin. Dunedin Airport in New Zealand has a new sign imposing a 3-minute time limit on hugs.
Oh,
in its drop-off area, adding, for fonder farewells, please use the car park. So
wrap it up. They're gonna start playing walk-off music. Yeah.
I mean, apparently New Zealand's a very romantic place, or a place where a lot of people visit and don't want to leave.
I believe.
But apparently that's a big thing there. I mean, if I'm in New Zealand, I'm probably not wanting to come back. I'm just saying, it's probably like stepping into paradise.
It's stepping into Lord of the Rings. That's what it's stepping into.
Well, very well, maybe. So something special about that. You know what I mean? Something special. Speaking of something special, last night, I don't know when you're listening to this podcast, but last night, Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024, history was made. And the LA Lakers had LeBron James and Bronny Jr. check in at the same time. And King Griffey Jr. and King Griffey Sr. were both there to watch it, who had also done that in the major leagues, which I think was such a special night. So here, let's give a hand clap to the James. Good job, guys. Peace. Balloons. Oh, yeah. Let's go. There it is. Come on, keep it going. There it is. There it is. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. So LeBron and Bronny, man, congratulations. I thought King Griffey Sr. said it great. He said you have to be good enough to play a long time, and the young guys have to be good enough to get there early so that this can happen. So I just thought that was well done. I think there's Bronny Jr. is probably getting a lot of hate of, oh, he just got there because of his dad. And if it wasn't for his dad, the Lakers wouldn't have drafted him. And if it wasn't for this, he would have gone. And maybe there's some truth to some of that. But the reality is the dude can play. If you've watched him at any level, he can play. And the fact that your dad is the greatest basketball player, in my opinion, this is going to be a very controversial statement, and I'm okay with it. He's the only basketball player in the history of the NBA to have 40,000 points. LeBron James is the greatest basketball player to ever play in the history of the game. To have your son accelerated, 100%. His kid's going to be good. If his son is average, he will be better than most, in my opinion, because LeBron James has done things nobody has ever done in the history of the game. I don't care about the extra championships. There are guys in the Hall of Fame that do not have championships at every level of every sport, right? Championships do not make you a great player. Do you need to win one? Dan Marino never won one, and there's nobody saying he's not one of the greatest of all time, right? There are guys who have won championships. Trent Dilfer, he won a championship with the Ravens. Nobody's lobbying for him to get into the Hall of Fame. You know, now I'm not saying Trent Dilfer, he did his job as a quarterback, but I'm saying when you think about a Trent Dilfer or you think about Dan Marino, I mean, come on, like one won a championship, one didn't, right? I mean, come on, let's be serious. Did Trent Dilfer did he win a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers too?
You're asking the wrong guy.
I'm gonna look this up. I know
that comment you
he
made
won.
earlier,
The Ravens won their first Super Bowl. Who won? Who was the quarterback?
Comment pit.
Yeah, who was the quarterback when the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl? That's what I want to know. Brad Johnson.
I don't know.
Yeah. Nobody's saying Brad Johnson should be in the Hall of Fame over Dan Marino. These are good quarterbacks. Don't get me wrong. These are Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. I'm taking nothing away from their accomplishments. But what I'm saying is everybody wants to argue LeBron's not the greatest. Well, he can play all 5 positions, and he can do it at a Hall of Fame level. Every position he can play at a Hall of Fame level. Nobody's ever been able to do that. And he scored 40,000, only person in the NBA. I mean, the dude is just he's in another sphere. Michael Jordan changed the game. Like the jump man, right? Air Jordan. He changed the way basketball is played. It's no question. But so did LeBron. So, and I just say you can't say that Michael Jordan wasn't the greatest. You can't say LeBron. I get all that. So it is hard to say, well, he's the greatest ever played. But I'm saying if you had one player to pick to be on your team to start a franchise of all time, hands down, I'm taking LeBron because he can play all 5 positions. That's all I'm saying. He can play all 5. That's my point. He can shoot with the best of them. So that's all I'm saying.
All right.
That's it. I like Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan's phenomenal. You can't argue against him. But Michael Jordan took a couple years off to play baseball. Yeah, Michael Jordan took a couple years off to play baseball, right? So that would have affected a lot of things. I get that. But LeBron James can play all 5 positions. That is my argument. If you're picking one player to start a franchise. Utility guy. Where you want him. That's all I'm saying. You know? I think it's a great point. I think it's a great point if you're starting a franchise. Just saying.
Yeah.
All right, man. What kind of fun facts you got for us today?
All right. So, fortunately for us, the season's starting to change a little bit. Weather's starting to get nicer. But along with that comes some illness and some sickness, right? So, great. I know you and I don't necessarily get sick a whole lot. Like I can't even remember the last time. Yeah, I got really sick. But I do know that when I do get sick, it's pretty bad. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
But it's pretty bad when I do.
I don't know.
But here's what I want to know. You don't know?
No, I don't. I don't really know. Because my kids will get sick, and I might get like a little bit of a scratchy throat for 3 hours, and then I'm over it. But then last Christmas, I don't know what I had, but it was probably 3 or 4 days on and off. I had a fever, but I never coughed. I never had a stomach ache. I just felt feverish for 3 and 4 days on and off. And so I still don't know what it was. It was weird. And that's the last sickness I've had. So I probably get a fever once every 10 years. So I don't know. Is that bad?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if it's bad because I don't get deathly ill when I get ill, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I had something that I defied logic. I don't know.
Well, you and I might not be the best to talk about this, but I want to know for all of the wives out there, you put it in the comments if you want, let us know. But I want to know, does your husband get the man flu? That's really what I want to know. Do you know what the man flu is, Brandon?
Can I make? Do you want me to make a guess?
Yes, make a guess.
I would assume that it's when your husband gets a little bit sick and he's laid up, moaning and groaning on the couch, wishing that he had died and thinking that he has the worst sickness ever.
Exactly. Yeah. So, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, the man flu is an illness such as a cold that is not serious, but that the person who has it treats it as more serious, usually when this person
Wow.
is a man. The Urban
Wow.
Dictionary
That's pretty
says
critical.
that it is. Urban Dictionary says it's more painful than childbirth.
Oh my goodness. That's a lie. I've watched childbirth 4 times. There ain't nothing worse than that. Open heart surgery is not more intense than childbirth. I don't care what anybody says.
But a recent post in the New York Times actually talks about this. And they pose the question, well, is there a reason for this? And surprisingly, there are some reasons that when men get sick, it can be a little worse for them than women. So we all get,
Let's hear those.
they seem to get made fun of. But here, the first then is, I actually love this because it's a double-edged sword. First point is men tend to have weaker immune systems than women. All right, so it's just starting off on a bare level. We don't have the immune system that women do. But
can I make an educated guess as to why?
Yeah,
I don't
go
believe
ahead,
that
because
is
I'm gonna tell you
scientific.
why.
I think that is. I'm going to tell you one reason. I think we don't take care of our bodies the way women take care of their bodies. I don't think that men eat or exercise or take care of themselves the way women do. That's my first guess.
Yeah, so research finds that in general, men take fewer precautions to avoid getting sick, such as wearing a mask or washing their hands. Men also tend to engage more in unhealthy behaviors like smoking, drinking, alcohol, and they are more reluctant to seek medical care, all of which can lead to worse outcomes when they do fall ill.
Bam.
So yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword. So I can't really complain about that one too much. But there are some biological differences. And this one I found kind of interesting. So women often produce, they mount kind of a greater defense response when an illness is introduced into the body. And they go on to explain why, that it actually has to do with the X chromosome. So women have two X chromosomes, obviously. So genetically, the X chromosome has a lot to do with I'm trying to find it here, but it when the body senses this, the X chromosome specifically sends these things out to fight that illness. And because women have two, they almost have a lot more than men do, which I thought was really, really interesting. And then the third factor is the sheer fact that we have testosterone. Testosterone appears to dampen our immune system, and estrogen enhances it. So, again, I know you and I don't struggle with this.
Yeah.
To all the men out there that get the man flu, wives, I want to know if that's your husband. Call him out. But you have some reasons.
I would be curious. I would be curious if my wife would say that I am a baby when I get sick. I'd be curious. I could ask her right now.
My dad was. But most of the time, my dad's was self-inflicted because he'd eat shellfish, which he knew he was allergic to. Sometimes he'd eat it and he didn't know he was eating it. But I mean, you're talking the loudest. When he threw up, it was like, oh, Lord, oh, Jesus. Oh! Like you could hear it all throughout the house. And it was the most, it sounded like he was dying, but he was just throwing up. It's like, just throw up, get it over
That's
with.
probably like me. When I'm throwing up, it's like it's coming out of my toenails. You know what I mean? When I throw up, it's like I can't tell you. When's the last time you threw up?
That's what I'm saying. I don't get sick very often. It's probably been,
I don't think,
more than 5 years, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's probably been, man, the last time I've thrown up, I would say, man, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years maybe. I'm thinking. I don't know. I can't even remember. I do remember one time when I was in middle school. So my kids don't like my kids like to stay at home if I let them all the time. I'm like, what's wrong with you guys? But my dad told me, he's like, man, I had to talk you into staying home when you were sick. I remember one time I snuck to school. Meaning, I didn't even tell my parents I was sick. I was puking all day. I remember I had apple juice at lunch. I felt like trash, and I came back after PE, puked in the toilet in the bathroom, and it tasted like hot apple cider, bro. I'll never forget. I was like, this is like the most enjoyable throw up I've ever had in my life. It was just hot apple cider. I never stayed home, bro. I had perfect attendance in like 7th grade. I never missed more than like a day or two. In fact, my senior year, one of my best friends was like, bro, we're going to the beach. You're coming with me. I was like, why? I haven't missed a day all year. It was the last week of school. And that Friday, he's like, you're missing just because you can't have perfect attendance your senior year. So we missed one day just so I didn't have perfect attendance because I just never miss. My thing was, well, I have somewhere to be. Were you like that?
No. Yeah. I mean, we definitely had the rule of like, unless you throw up, you're going to school. Like that was kind of the bar.
Yeah.
It's like,
my thing was, if I'm throwing up, I'm not telling you. Yeah. I'm like, if I'm throwing up, I ain't telling you I'm going to school. I don't know why. It wasn't even that I liked school. I just went. But anyway, hey, you asked for it.
Don't blame me. You asked for it.
All right. So, hey, we're here in this time of year where Halloween is right around the corner. Trick-or-treating is at large, and Amazon is delivering boxes all over with Michael Myers costume. So, what was your... I have 2 questions. Number 1, what was your most humiliating Halloween costume that you've ever worn as a child? Maybe you don't think it was humiliating at the time, but now you feel like it was humiliating.
Yeah. So there's pictures of this too. I don't know how I could find them, but back in the day, growing up in the church, you didn't do trick or treating. You
did the Halloween events at the church. Oh yeah,
yeah. You had harvest parties in the basement of your church.
Oh, I remember. Everybody was Mary, Joseph, and Moses.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that I was a wise man or something. I don't know. So that takes the cake. Little Corey as a wise man at a heart, and I think right next to me was my sister, and I'm pretty sure she was a sheep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, those are bad. And I think anybody listening to this is like, bro, this is why I don't go to church. This is why I don't go to church. Listen, I remember when I was in 6th grade, or like 6 years old, we were walking out and I was Dracula. I was walking out to trick or treat and my sister stepped on my cape, and bro, I lost it. I was crying because my cape was like, it was just like nothing but like a cheap little, barely like, not like a, like, I don't want to say a tarp. It was like, the tablecloths that you are reusable. It was made out of like that. Oh, yeah. But that wasn't humiliating. I'll tell you what was humiliating was whenever my dad started pastoring at a church in DC. We had a harvest party and I dressed as a bear with giant feet. And then another one was my mom. We were, bless her heart, it was great, but she made a popcorn box with popcorn on it and a hat for a youth event for a trick or treat. And I was a popcorn box, a movie popcorn box.
People just keep touching your head the whole time.
Dude. It was popcorn all over the top. Yeah. I mean, that's my kids. If I told them they're wearing that, would be like, "No, Dad, there ain't a chance." They don't know how good they have it. Also, they get to go trick or treating. They get to dress up as whatever they want.
Why did your bear costume? Why'd your bear costume have to have big feet?
I don't know, man. But we had like hundreds of kids there. This church my dad was at was massive. And bro, I won best costume, and I was so embarrassed.
We did.
I don't really embarrassed at the time. I just realized my costume wasn't that great.
Yeah.
I was just, kids knew me, and so I had to go up in front of all these kids with these giant feet, and I was like, "You won the best costume." It wasn't at the time. I was like, "This is awesome." In spite of me wearing this outfit, I still win something. But looking back, I'm like, bro, I hated that outfit. I felt like I was in my pajamas all night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and that's why
one of my favorites.
I felt vulnerable.
Obviously. Yeah, Lauren and I obviously used to youth pastor, and we would do like a Halloween costume contest every year. And we had different small groups, and the small groups would all compete against one another. And one of the years, again, it was surprise. You never knew what they were coming as. Well, one entire group came dressed as me. so it was like,
that's hilarious.
They literally printed out big pictures of different pictures of me and it on their face, and they were all dressed like me. They won clearly.
That's a good one.
That was classic.
That's a good one. Well, do you ever feel like there are people who take it too serious? Like you're out there and you see like this 4-year-old and he's dressed like Chucky, and it's like the makeup's so intense and the outfit's so real. You're like, bro,
cosplay.
Yeah. You ever feel like, man, maybe y'all are a little bit too serious? This kid's a little bit. You ever judge people whose kids are dressed up a little too creepy? Like, bro, what's wrong with you?
Maybe I don't know. I'm ever since last year when I got a Michael Myers costume. Maybe I take it too serious now. I'm that guy in the neighborhood creeping everybody
Yeah,
out.
that's what Rylan wants to be. Makai wants to be a clown, and I'm like, yeah, y'all are crazy, and creepy. But
Yeah.
the only way we draw the line at demons. You can't be a demon, but you can be something else. Why? Because I've seen them, and they're not funny. It's not funny to act like
Yeah.
one. The
Yeah.
reality is, man, Halloween has become. It's a great. The thing about Halloween that I love is that it's a community event now, where people are outside their homes. They're sharing time with each other, and it's so funny to me how people have made this into something satanic, right?
Yeah.
They're like, well, do you know where it came from? It's like, I don't know. There's a lot of things that you do. Do you know where they came from? Where they came from and what they mean are two very different things. You could have something that you do now that is not even connected to where it came from, and it's actually something good, right? Um, and so I think it's just interesting. I love Halloween as far as a community. It's like my favorite community event because everybody's outside their homes. People are giving candy. It's such a sweet, sweet event. And I think it's just funny to me how for years, I mean, trunk or treats are great, as those are fun. But I think it's just like for many years, the church has always tried to take everything the world does. And it's like, my opinion is this. So if you don't celebrate Halloween, then why are you doing a harvest party? Like, what's the difference? Well, we're not doing ghosts and goblins, but aren't you still celebrating something where people dress up and come to your church, whether or not it's a Bible character? It's like saying, well, I drink alcohol, but I don't drink liquor. I just drink beer, and I'm an alcoholic. It's like, well, if you're an alcoholic, what's the matter of what you're drinking? It's like, well, if you're going to celebrate Halloween and you're saying you can't trick or treat and dress up, then why are you sending kids dressed like Moses to your church to lift up their hands and worship and eat candy that has scripture on it? Like, what's the difference? There is no difference. I'll tell you the creepiest thing I've ever been to on Halloween. We lived in Oakland, Maryland, and there was a church about an hour away in the middle of nowhere. And the church building held about 50 people. And there was 3 churches in that area who got together to put this event on. It was no joke, it was a haunted house with a goal of bringing people to Jesus. You rolled up on this haunted house. There was an upside down car with somebody hanging out of it. That's how it started.
Oh, this is like Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames.
Dude, I promise you, there is no Ghost, Goblin, Freddy Krueger, or Chainsaw Massacre that was more creepy. You go in there and there's like people in hospital beds. This is a tiny church in the middle of nowhere. It was just creepy, but with a basement. And this is where we took our youth group. Because at the very end, they give you an opportunity to come to know Christ, and all of us got saved. All of us got saved. I just think it's funny how much we try to take a Halloween and make it into the thing is, like, if you want to make an impact on Halloween, I'll tell you what you do. You just love people, right? Send your kids out there. Let them go and enjoy their neighborhood and love your neighbors, man. Don't be that people with a light off. I don't celebrate Halloween. Okay, great. You're stiff. It's not spiritual. I just think it's so funny to me how we make things like that so spiritual. It's like they're not. They're not, dude. I have friends that are adamant against Halloween that are pastors, and they're like, I don't let my kids do this. And it's like, bro, it's not spiritual. You're not spiritual. Your reasoning is not spiritual. It's not. I promise you it's not. You know what I'm saying? And it's just one of those things of like, man, I wish the Christians would understand of like, if you love people in culture, I don't say you have to love culture, but you love people in culture and you engage in culture, how much more of an impact you have and how much more people can sense the love of God than if you push culture away because you're too righteous. Jesus never did that.
Yeah.
Jesus went to a woman at the well who had already been married, and the man she was with she'd been married multiple times, and the man she was with wasn't her husband. And you don't talk to women as a man, let alone a Jew talking to a Samaritan. I mean, this was like going into a strip club. That's the equivalent. It would have been like Jesus, for him to talk to that woman with nobody around was as promiscuous as it gets without him actually physically having an encounter with her.
Yeah.
And a Samaritan woman. I mean, that is as risque as it gets in that time. You don't talk to women. They are not to approach men, especially not a Jew and a Samaritan. So what if Jesus just followed culture? It's like, no, that's demonic. Like, I'm not even going to, how many pastors or people would say, I can't give the appearance of evil. I can't talk to her. You see what I'm saying? It's one thing to be in a hotel room with a woman, the door closed. But if you're in a place where everybody can see you, it's not promiscuous.
Yeah.
The appearance of evil is not there does that make sense?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I mean, people take those things to such extremes that, I mean, even with yeah, like you're saying, even yeah, don't go into a room and close the door. But some people are like, well, I don't even talk, I don't even interact. That's a person. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's wild.
So Jesus did something you're saying is not righteous for you to do. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I just think this is what
Yep.
happens with culture and with what God actually wants to use us for. God, you can't influence culture unless you are in culture. What does the Bible say? Be in the world, but not what? Of it, right?
Of
Yeah, be in the world, but don't
Mhm.
be of it. Meaning you got to make an impact right where you're at. You've got to be able to, and I think it's just like we feel like we're Christ ambassadors and missionaries and we're just here for everybody else. It's like, have you ever thought that like you need God as much as they need God every day? Like you need him the same. You know what I mean? And I think it's we're in this Holy Spirit series right now at our church, and I think the biggest thing we're trying to explain to people is there are gifts, then we all have different gifts. There is fruit of the Spirit that we are all supposed to have: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. And then we talk about speaking in tongues and how like there's an experience you can have with God. It's a filling of the Spirit. It's completely different from those things, and it's an intimacy. There is a gift of tongues and interpretation, but it's one of the spiritual gifts. But then there's just a communication with God, which it's like this experience you have with the Holy Spirit where you're overflowing, and it's sweet, and it's the Bible says you utter mysteries in your spirit, and so there's this connection with God that it's not for public consumption. It's between you and Him, right? And I think that what happens in the church is that we get so consumed with things and we get so overwhelmed with trying to make sure that people are doing what we need them to do and that they're living. I just don't, when we get stuck on rules, it's because we lack the relationship. You know, when I hear about stuff like this, I'm like, man, dude, y'all are missing out. Like trick or treating is one of the best things, community events you could possibly be part of. Everybody's outside their homes. And if you're not engaging in that, you're not standing up for something. You're not standing up for anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just, and I know some people are, I mean, there's some avid, staunch, like this is 100%, this is not God. And I'm like, man, I remember the first year when we first moved down to Virginia Beach, we only had 2 of our kids. And I remember we went the first time, we went over to a neighborhood because we lived in an apartment, and we stopped at Hardee's and had dinner. And then we went to this apartment. We didn't have any money. So like Hardee's for dinner, I remember we got like 10 chicken fingers for all of us. And we went over this, to this, place, and we were like some of the only people there for a while, and it was the place where our church was planted. And I remember just almost getting a little teary-eyed because I was just like, man, when you move into a city and you plant a church, you really don't feel like anybody sees you. You don't feel like anybody cares if you left tomorrow, and then maybe they wouldn't. But that night, for whatever reason, was the first night I felt like people loved our family. And it sounds odd, but I remember walking with my boys up to get these candy bars, and these people were so sweet. The way they opened the doors, they wanted to have conversations with us. It was a bigger neighborhood, so the houses were a little more spread apart. And they just wanted to have conversation, like talk about how cute the kids' outfits were. And you just kind of felt like for the first time, the community was embracing us. Like all they're doing is open up their door, giving you candy, but it's like they're recognizing that you existed there. And as a church planter, I didn't feel like anybody knew we were there. And as crazy as that sounds, it was interaction with people in the neighborhoods we were trying to provide a church for, particularly. And people just would look you in the eye and just talk about your family. And you had 10, 15, 20-second moments with people that was just genuine. And I remember that as being something that was just a good connection for me and my family, because honestly, it felt like before that, maybe nobody even knew we were here. I mean, I've walked miles through a lot of these neighborhoods by myself, putting door hangers that were filled with candy and advertisements on these doors. Chafage that took weeks to go away. You know, it's like my thighs, those things were rubbing for days, baby. It's like, but it's like, man, it was just one of those things that like you're like, man, they see me. And I think, man, a lot of people don't realize how impactful they could be at these times, and like really just loving their neighbors, you know.
Yep. It's an opportunity. You don't run from it.
Yeah, be a part of what's in your community, man. And so, hey, I know one thing that was in January, this actually came about, that it was diagnosed, but recently it came out that, you know, Brett Favre was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Which is super sad, you know, Hall of Fame quarterback, and it's a progressive brain disorder. It causes movement problems, stiffness, balance issues, but it's caused by a lack of dopamine in the brain, which is because of damaged nerve cells. And I don't know how many of y'all watched Brett Favre's career, but that dude had a lot of concussions, and so you really start thinking about the toll this takes on people. And it's funny because, not funny, but it's sad because a lot of the guys we watched coming up they gave us so much entertainment on so many Sundays, so many hours, are now in a place as they get older where they're not Junior Seau took his life, and he shot himself in the chest, and they say like they believe he did that so they could do studies on his brain. And so it's just sad because you wonder. I mean, we know that it's a barbaric sport, and so it's just, I don't know, it's just sad. You know what I mean? I mean, Junior Seau committed suicide at 43, and it's just one of those things that these guys have been such a big part of our lives, and now there's significant illnesses, and they know when to get into it, the risks. I mean, Junior Seau was 43 years old and took his life, and he was obviously, these guys, there's so much going on with their brains that I don't know if a lot of these guys, when stuff happens to them, is even aware. Just recently, a former player for the Giants was there was a robbery, and because of the condition of his brain, they're saying, well, they're sending him to treatment instead of, I guess it was like an offset to like jail time, because these guys have legitimate things going on in their brains. I've only played football through college, and I can tell you that it does, man. I remember every day after high school practice, coaches are different in high school and college. You hit a lot more. Like, I had headaches all the time, and I don't know how many of those were concussions, but I know that I have not pushed my boys super hard in playing football, because usually your career is pretty short and you hit pretty big injuries. And if they like other things, I know Asher, my youngest, wants to play, but like Caden, my oldest, is like, man, I don't know if I want to get hurt. And I said, don't do it if you're worried about that. If baseball's number one, stick with that. Just stay away from it, because I know if you don't go out there with a vengeance, you're going to get hurt. You know what I mean? And so I love the sport. One of my favorite sports. But it's, you see these guys that were a huge part of your childhood, and they're sick, or they've died, or they've committed suicide, or now like, Parkinson's. It's just like, man, and I know we're all getting older, but yeah, man, it's just sad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough. I didn't know that about the one guy because of potentially researching his brain. That's heartbreaking.
That's what they believe. I mean, they believe he did it. He shot himself in the chest so that, like, because obviously if you shoot yourself in the head, I mean, I don't hope this isn't a trigger for anybody, but if you do that, but that they believe it was one of those things where like they could,
Jeez.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that's 100% the reason, or if that was just what was said. I'm looking at it right now, but I know that that was what it was initially said, was they believed. And I don't know if there was any letter left or a note to say, hey, this is why I did this, but they're believing that a big reason was because he wanted people to be able to, look at his head and be able to see if there's something that could save somebody's life. I mean, Junior Seau was a model citizen for the most part, from what I remember. And, was a great person. So I mean, I'm guessing. They say he was a great teammate, and just a positive person, and really just kind of a community guy. And I think he was struggling a lot with depression, and but they say that they think he had some type of disorder possibly, and that research could determine that. But I think, they said that, when he came out of, playing this professional sport, and no longer you're not in the middle, like there's a transition a lot of these guys have trouble making when you're no longer in the middle of attention. And, so we'll see.
Well, I see
they don't know, like, I guess there's not.
Oh, sorry. I was saying you're seeing a handful of those guys wearing, what do they call them, the Guardian caps now?
Yeah.
Like,
if it can prolong my career, or even not even prolong my career, but make me more cognitive and not have that injury after, I'm all in, But they said, he had a tough time transitioning after football when he was no longer on the field. And yeah, that's a lot of adrenaline hitting you every week, and training for something and being like the highlight of your life. And if that just to be gone, I can understand the struggle, but they were saying that there's a disease maybe that, he'll help other people with. They don't, I guess there's a part of it, they don't know if he shot himself in the chest for that reason, but I think there's a part where they're all like, man, this is something that, could have maybe helped others. So it's just sad. You know what I mean? It's just sad.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so here's my final thought. So I have a question, and it's a rhetorical question because there's not really an answer, but why are politics so dividing? Like, we don't talk a lot about politics in general. One, because you can talk about something, there's no resolve. There's never anybody who said, yeah, I've talked about politics, we make ground. It doesn't make ground in the Capitol and the White House. I mean, there's just more division. But why is it so dividing? And I think as I've thought a lot about this, I've really racked my brain of like, Lord, help me understand why politics is such a division amongst people. Christians, there are good Christian people who will vote on both sides of because of things that are important to them. And a lot of people will think, well, man, you can't be a Christian and vote this way. But why are they so dividing, I wonder? Because if we're going to be honest, there are significant moral issues on both sides. There are significant moral issues both parties bring to the table. Moral issues that would be biblically incorrect for us to vote a certain way. On the Republican side, obviously people are like, well, man, we're for abortion, things like that. On the Democratic side, they would say, man, we take care of people. We really help, and the government steps in and helps a lot of people who can't help themselves. There's biblical concepts on both sides, and the Bible says there's no degree to sin. And so therefore, you can't say one of these things is more valuable than the other. And you could say, well, it looks different. But what I'm saying is, why do they divide us so much? You can be a Christian, and I feel like you can talk about Christianity at the table, and it's not as dividing as politics. I feel like you can talk about, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really believe in God. And then you can move on. Or you can say, man, I believe in God too. And you're like, well, that person's life doesn't look like it. But you can move on. You can say, well, let's hold each other accountable. But when it comes to politics, you don't ever sway somebody from one party to the other. It's just a very different thing. And I was like, well, why is it so dividing? And I think when we put our trust in a system and in a person or people, you're going to be divided because there's not going to be an answer, right? Your trust is in a system. Your trust is in my future, my retirement, my life is resting in the hands of these decisions. And I think that if we step back as Christians and say, no, we're resting in the hands of God. And regardless of what people do with my Social Security checks, regardless of what people do with our tax money, regardless of the tax rates, regardless of my job or my boss, God is my provider. And I think as we lean more into that and trust more into that, we see that politics will become less a soapbox for us, and it'll be a place for us to meet people, a place for us to help people, a place for us to love people. When you can love people that is on a different side of the aisle than you, and it doesn't matter that they're fighting against the thing you're fighting for, and love them, it's because your trust is in something bigger. And so I just want to encourage people during this season. I mean, the signs are going up even more places. We've had to take a couple down in front of our church that we didn't give permission for people to put. They just put them up. I'm surprised my front yard doesn't have more signs in it. You know what I mean? I don't put signs out, but I told Case, this is a prime real estate out here or on the main road. I'm surprised we don't have signs out here. Yeah, but the reality is I'm excited for these commercials to go away. I'm excited for these because this is the thing. I feel like this is the most divided time in our entire country, our communities, is when you get close to these elections. And I don't know if it's as much because people have an opinion or is we just all feel really, really on edge because we're not sure what the future holds. And I just want to encourage everybody listening that we know who holds the future, and he's good and he's faithful. And all of us have worries and fears, but God says, hey, there's no fear today or worry about tomorrow. Nothing can separate you from the love of God. And so I would encourage you to submit to the Lord with everything, with prayer and petitions. Submit your requests to the Lord because he'll do it. And so I just want to encourage everybody listening. No politically charged candidate has ever changed your life in the way maybe you thought they would. But I can promise you, nobody could ever change your life the way Jesus has and provide the way Jesus does. You might say, what if we have nothing? My checks are gone. Well, then be excited whenever that money bag is left on your doorstep. You know what I'm saying? Be excited whenever God does what only he can do, because I promise you, he's still a miracle worker and he'll do things that people can't explain. Let me pray for you. Lord, I thank you so much for these people. I thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for your goodness, your mercy. Be with us. Holy Spirit, thank you for the way you speak to us. We love you. Everybody said, amen. Hey, we love you guys. We'll see you this weekend. Have a great day. I'm looking through my door here. My office door is glass and my dog is eating my carpet, so I got to go. He's eating. Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing, bro? Yeah. He's eating his bone. I look out and he's like picking his carpet up. I'm like, what's the problem? Love y'all.